Here we have a missing digit multiplication, and we solve this by following the same steps as in a normal multiplication problem. So to start with, we have 7 times something, and we have a 1 in our answer box. How can you multiply 7 by something to get 1? Well, you can't, so what they must have done is multiplied 7 by something which gives a units digit of 1, and then they must have carried the first digit over. Now the only single digit you can multiply by 7 to get a units digit of 1 is 3, and 7 times 3 is 21, so they must have carried the 2 from their answer of 21. Now we can work through the multiplication steps. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, so we carry 1 and have 1 in our answer box. 1 times 3 is 3, add 1 is 4, and 5 times 3 is 15, and because we already have the 5 from 15, we just need to write the 1 in our answer box. Now where it gets harder is where you have to solve multi-digit missing digit multiplications, but it's the same idea, we just work our way through each step. So they started with 8 times 2, which is 16, so carry the 1 and leave the 6 in the first answer line. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10, so carry the 1 and leave the 0 in the answer line. And now we have something times 2 is 13, but remember they will have added the 1 that we carried, so really we need to work out something times 2 is 12, and we know that 6 times 2 is 12, and then adding the 1 we carried gives us 13. So now let's cross out the numbers we carried and move on to the next answer line. For the second answer line, because we're multiplying by a multiple of 10 now, we know that this digit here is always a 0. So now we have 8 times something is 2, but because you can't multiply by 8 to get 2, we know that they must have multiplied 8 by something which gives a units digit of 2 and then carried over. Now if we know our 8 times table, we know that 8 times 4 is 32, so perhaps they multiplied by 4 and then carried the 3, carried the tens digits. But I've written this in red because there's another possibility. What else might they have done? They might have done 8 times 9 to get 72, and then carried the 7. So how do we know which is correct? Is it what's written in red or in dark blue? Well, at this stage we don't know, so we keep going, trying both of them out. If red is correct, the next step would be to do 1 times 4 and then add 3, which is 7. Now this fits with the answer because we have a 7 here. If dark blue was correct, they would have done 1 times 9 and then added 7, which gives 16. But it's a 7 in our answer box, not a 6, so we know that here red is correct. They multiplied 8 by 4 and then carried the 3 from their answer of 32, and then they did 1 times 4 plus 3 to get 7. Moving on, we have 5 times 4, which is 20, so we carry the 2 and have 0 in our answer box. And now 6 times 4 is 24, plus 2 is 26. And as we already have the 6 from 26 in our answer line, we just need to write the 2. Now we can cross out any carrying again and add our answers together to give us our final answer. Let's try another missing digit multiplication. We start with 6 times something and it gives a units digit of 8. We know that 6 times 3 is 18, so perhaps they did 6 times 3 and carried the 1 from 18, but what else might they have done? We also know that 6 times 8 is 48, so perhaps they did 6 times 8 to get 48, carrying the 4. How do we know which is correct? Well, we need to try them both out and see which works. If red was correct, the next step would be to do 0 times 3 and then add 1. And this gives us 1, but there's a 4 in our answer box. So let's try dark blue. 0 times 8 is 0, plus 4 is 4. So this works. The numbers that we've written in blue are correct. So we did 6 times 8 to get 48. We carried the 4, and then we did 0 times 8 plus 4 to get 4. Then they did 1 times 8 to get 8, so no carrying again there. And finally, we have something times 8 is 56. And we know 56 divided by 8 is 7, so they did 7 times 8. Now we can cross out our carrying and move on to the next line. We know that with the second answer line, because we're multiplying by a multiple of 10, we always have a 0 in our units column. Now 6 times 5 is 30, so carry the 3, write 0 in our answer line. 0 times 5 is 0, but plus the 3 we carried gives us 3. And then we had 1 times 5 is 5. 7 times 5 is 35. So now we can just add up our answers in the usual way to find our remaining missing numbers. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 3 is 11. 1 plus 6 plus 5 is 12. 1 plus 5 plus 5 is 11, and 1 plus 3 is 4.